The Law of Success. Lesson 16. The Golden Rule. You can do it if you believe you can. With this lesson, we approach the apex of the pyramid of this course on the Law of Success. This lesson is the guiding star that will enable you to use profitably and constructively the knowledge assembled in the preceding lessons. There is more power wrapped up in the preceding lessons of this course than most men could trust themselves with. Therefore, this lesson is a governor that will, if observed and applied, enable you to steer your ship of knowledge over the rocks and reefs of failure that usually beset the pathway of all who come suddenly into possession of power. For more than 25 years, I have been observing the manner in which men behave themselves when in possession of power, and I have been forced to the conclusion that the man who attains it in any other than by the slow, step-by-step process is constantly in danger of destroying himself and all whom he influences. It must have become obvious to you, long before this, that this entire course leads to the attainment of power of proportions which may be made to perform the seemingly impossible. Happily, it becomes apparent that this power can only be attained by the observance of many fundamental principles, all of which converge in this lesson, which is based upon a law that both equals and transcends in importance every other law outlined in the preceding lessons. Likewise, it becomes apparent to the thoughtful student that this power can endure only by faithful observance of the law upon which this lesson is based, wherein lies the safety valve that protects the careless student from the dangers of his own follies, and protects, also, those whom he might endanger if he tried to circumvent the injunction laid down in this lesson. To prank with the power that may be attained from the knowledge wrapped up in the preceding lessons of this course, without a full understanding and strict observance of the law laid down in this lesson, is the equivalent of pranking with a power which may destroy as well as create. I am speaking, now, not of that which I suspect to be true, but of that which I know to be true. The truth upon which this entire course, and this lesson in particular, is founded, is no invention of mine. I lay no claim to it except that of having observed its unvarying application in the everyday walks of life over a period of more than 25 years of struggle, and of having appropriated as much of it as, in the light of my human frailties and weaknesses, I could make use of. If you demand positive proof of the soundness of the laws upon which this course in general, and this lesson in particular, is founded, I must plead inability to offer it except through one witness, and that is yourself. You may have positive proof only by testing and applying these laws for yourself. If you demand more substantial and authoritative evidence than my own, then I am privileged to refer you to the teachings and philosophy of Christ, Plato, Socrates, Epictetus, Confucius, Emerson, and two of the more modern philosophers, James and Minsterberg, from whose works I have appropriated all that constitutes the more important fundamentals of this lesson, with the exception of that which I have gathered from my own limited experience.
Hi, my name's Dart. I'm the person behind these videos. Please like and subscribe, and if you haven't already, be sure to sign up for the playlist so you can hear this book in its entirety. Now back to the book.
For more than 4,000 years, men have been preaching the Golden Rule as a suitable rule of conduct among men, but unfortunately the world BAS accepted the letter while totally missing the spirit of this universal injunction. We have accepted the Golden Rule philosophy merely as a sound rule of ethical conduct, but we have failed to understand the law upon which it is based. I have heard the Golden Rule quoted scores of times, but I do not recall having ever heard an explanation of the law upon which it is based, and not until recent years did I understand that law, from which I am led to believe that those who quoted it did not understand it. The Golden Rule means, substantially, to do unto others as you would wish them to do unto you if your positions were reversed. But why? What is the real reason for this kindly consideration of others? The real reason is this: there is an eternal law through the operation of which we reap that which we sow. When you select the rule of conduct by which you guide yourself in your transactions with others, you will be fair and just, very likely. If you know that you are setting into motion, by that selection, a power that will run its course for weal or woe in the lives of others, returning, finally, to help or to hinder you, according to its nature. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall be also reap. It is your privilege to deal unjustly with others, but, if you understand the law upon which the Golden Rule is based, you must know that your unjust dealings will come home to roost. If you fully understood the principles described in Lesson 11 on accurate thought, it will be quite easy for you to understand the law upon which the Golden Rule is based. You cannot pervert or change the course of this law, but you can adapt yourself to its nature and thereby use it as an irresistible power that will carry you to heights of achievement which could not be attained without its aid. This law does not stop by merely flinging back upon you your acts of injustice and unkindness toward others, it goes further than this, much further, and returns to you the results of every thought that you release. Therefore, not alone is it advisable to do unto others as you wish them to do unto you, but to avail yourself fully of the benefits of this great universal law, you must think of others as you wish them to think of you. The law upon which the golden rule is based begins affecting you, either for good or evil, the moment you release a thought. It has amounted almost to a worldwide tragedy that people have not generally understood this law. Despite the simplicity of the law, it is practically all there is to be learned that is of enduring value to man, for it is the medium through which we become the masters of our own destiny. Understand this law, and you understand all that the Bible has to unfold to you, for the Bible presents one unbroken chain of evidence in support of the fact that man is the maker of his own destiny, and that his thoughts and acts are the tools with which he does the making. During ages of less enlightenment and tolerance than that of the present, some of the greatest thinkers the world has ever produced have paid with their lives for daring to uncover this universal law, so that it might be understood by all. In the light of the past history of the world, it is an encouraging bit of evidence in support of the fact that men are gradually throwing off the veil of ignorance and intolerance. To note that I stand in no danger of bodily harm for writing that which would have cost me my life a few centuries ago. While this course deals with the highest laws of the universe, which man is capable of interpreting, the aim, nevertheless, has been to show how these laws may be used in the practical affairs of life. With this object of practical application in mind, let us now proceed to analyze the effect of the golden rule through the following incident. The power of prayer. No, said the lawyer, I shan't press your claim against that man. You can get someone else to take the case, or you can withdraw it, just as you please. Think there isn't any money in it? There probably would be some little money in it, but it would come from the sale of the little house that the man occupies and calls his home. But I don't want to meddle with the matter, anyhow. Got frightened out of it. Not at all. I suppose likely the fellow begged hard to be let off? Well, yes, he did. And you caved in, likely? Yes. What in creation did you do? I believe I shed a few tears. And the old fellow begged you hard, you say? No, I didn't say so. He didn't speak a word to me. Well, may I respectfully inquire whom he did address in your hearing? God Almighty. Ah, he took to praying, did he? Not for my benefit in the least. You see, I found the little house easily enough and knocked on the outer door, which stood ajar, but nobody heard me, so I stepped into the little hall and saw through the crack of a door a cozy sitting room, and there on the bed, with her silver head high on the pillows, was an old lady who looked for all the world just like my mother did the last time I ever saw her on earth. Well, I was on the point of knocking, when she said, Come, Father, now begin. I'm all ready. And down on his knees by her side went an old, white-haired man, still older than his wife, I should judge, and I couldn't have knocked then, for the life of me. Well, he began. First, he reminded God they were still his submissive children, mother and he, and no matter what he saw fit to bring upon them, they shouldn't rebel at his will. Of course, 'twas going to be very hard for them to go out homeless in their old age, especially with poor mother so sick and helpless, and, oh, how different it all might have been if only one of the boys had been spared. Then his voice kind of broke, and a white hand stole from under the coverlet and moved softly over his snowy hair. Then he went on to repeat that nothing could be so sharp again as the parting with those 3 sons, unless mother and he should be separated. But, at last, he fell to comforting himself with the fact that the dear Lord knew that it was through no fault of his own that mother and he were threatened with the loss of their dear little home, which meant beggary in the almshouse, a place they prayed to be delivered from entering if it should be consistent with God's will. And then he quoted a multitude of promises concerning the safety of those who put their trust in the Lord. In fact, it was the most thrilling plea to which I ever listened. And at last, he prayed for God's blessing on those who were about to demand justice. The lawyer then continued, more lowly than ever, and I believe I'd rather go to the poorhouse myself tonight than to stain my heart and hands with the blood of such a prosecution as that. Little afraid to defeat the old man's prayer? Bless your soul, man, you couldn't defeat it, said the lawyer. I tell you he left it all subject to the will of God, but he claimed that we were told to make known our desires unto God. But of all the pleadings I ever heard that beat all. You see, I was taught that kind of thing myself in my childhood. Anyway, why was I sent to bear that prayer? I am sure I don't know, but I hand the case over. I wish, said the client, twisting uneasily, you hadn't told me about the old man's prayer. Why so? Well, because I want the money the place would bring, But I was taught the Bible straight enough when I was a youngster, and I'd hate to run counter to what you tell about. I wish you hadn't heard a word about it, and, another time, I wouldn't listen to petitions not intended for my ears." The lawyer smiled. "My dear fellow," he said, "you're wrong again. It was intended for my ears, and yours, too, and God Almighty intended it. My old mother used to sing about God's moving in a mysterious way, as I remember it." "Well, my mother used to sing it, too," said the claimant, as he twisted the claim papers in his fingers. "You can call in the morning, if you like, and tell Mother and him the claim has been met." "In a mysterious way," added the lawyer, smiling. "Neither this lesson nor the course of which it idea part is based upon an appeal to maudlin sentiment, but there can be no escape from the truth that success, in its highest and noblest form, brings one, finally, to view all human relationships with a feeling of deep emotion such as that which this lawyer felt when he overheard the old man's prayer. It may be an old-fashioned idea, but somehow I can't get away from the belief that no man can attain success in its highest form without the aid of earnest prayer. Prayer is the key with which one may open the secret doorway referred to in Lesson 11. In this age of mundane affairs, when the uppermost thought of the majority of people centered upon the accumulation of wealth, or the struggle for a mere existence, it is both easy and natural for us to overlook the power of earnest prayer. I am not saying that you should resort to prayer as a means of solving your daily problems which press for immediate attention. No, I am not going that far in a course of instruction which will be studied largely by those who are seeking in it the road to success that is measured in dollars. But may I not modestly suggest to you that you, at least, give prayer a trial after everything else fails to bring you a satisfying success? 30 men, red-eyed and disheveled, lined up before the judge of the San Francisco police court. It was the regular morning company of drunks and dead orderlies. Some were old and hardened, others hung their beads in shame. Just as the momentary disorder attending the bringing in of the prisoners quieted down, a strange thing happened. A strong, clear voice from below began singing, "Last night I lay sleeping. There came a dream so fair." Last night. It had been for them all a nightmare or a drunken stupor. The song was such a contrast to the horrible fact that no one could fail of a sudden shock at the thought the song suggested. "I stood in Old Jerusalem, beside the temple there," the song went on. The judge had paused. He made a quiet inquiry. A former member of a famous opera company known all over the country was awaiting trial for forgery. It was he who was singing in his cell. Meantime the song went on, and every man in the line showed emotion. One or two dropped on their knees. One boy at the end of the line, after a desperate effort at self-control, leaned against the wall, buried his face against his folded arms, and sobbed, "Oh, mother, mother." The sobs, cutting to the very heart the men who heard, and the song, still welling its way through the courtroom, blended in the hush. At length one man protested. "Judge," said he, "have we got to submit is? We're here to take our punishment." But this he, too, began to sob. It was impossible to proceed with the business of the court, yet the court gave no order to stop the song. The police sergeant, after an effort to keep the men in line, stepped back and waited with the rest. The song moved on to its climax. "Jerusalem, Jerusalem. Sing, for the night is o'er. Hosanna, in the highest. Hosanna, forevermore." In an ecstasy of melody the last words rang out, and then there was silence. The judge looked into the faces of the men before him. There was not one who was not touched by the song, not one in whom some better impulse was not stirred. He did not call the cases singly, a kind word of advice, and he dismissed them all. No man was fined or sentenced to the workhouse that morning. The song had done more good than punishment could possibly have accomplished. You have read the story of a Golden Rule lawyer and a Golden Rule judge. In these two commonplace incidents of everyday life you have observed how the Golden Rule works when applied. A passive attitude toward the Golden Rule will bring no results. It is not enough merely to believe in the philosophy, while, at the same time, failing to apply it in your relationships with others. If you want results, you must take an active attitude toward the Golden Rule. A mere passive attitude, represented by belief in its soundness, will avail you nothing. Nor will it avail you anything to proclaim to the world your belief in the Golden Rule while your actions are not in harmony with your proclamation. Conversely stated, it will avail you nothing to appear to practice the Golden Rule, while, at heart, you are willing and eager to use this universal law of right conduct as a cloak to cover up a covetous and selfish nature. Murder will out. Even the most ignorant person will sense you for what you are. Human character does evermore publish itself. It will not be concealed. It hates darkness. It rushes into light. I heard an experienced counselor say that he never feared the effect upon a jury of a lawyer who does not believe in his heart that his client ought to have a verdict. If he does not believe it, his unbelief will appear to the jury, despite all his protestations, and will become their unbelief. This is that law whereby a work of art, of whatever kind, sets us in the same state of mind wherein the artist was when he made it. That which we do not believe we cannot adequately say, though we may repeat the words ever so often. It was this conviction which Swedenborg expressed when he described a group of persons in the spiritual world endeavoring in vain to articulate a proposition which they did not believe, but they could not, though they twisted and folded their lips even to indignation. A man passes for what he is worth. What he is engraves itself on his face, on his form, on his fortunes, in letters of light which all men may read but himself. If you would not be known to do anything, never do it. A man may play the fool in the drifts of a desert, but every grain of sand shall seem to see. Emerson. It is the law upon which the Golden Rule philosophy is based, to which Emerson has reference in the foregoing quotation. It was this same law that he had in mind when he wrote the following. Every violation of truth is not only a sort of suicide in the liar, but is a stab at the health of human society. On the most profitable lie the course of events presently lays a destructive tax, whilst frankness proves to be the best tactics, for it invites frankness, puts the parties on a convenient footing, and makes their business of friendship. Trust men, and they will be true to you. Treat them greatly, and they will show themselves great, though they make an exception in your favor to all their rules of trade. The Golden Rule philosophy is based upon a law which no man can circumvent. This law is the same law that is described in Lesson 11, on accurate thought, through the operation of which one's thoughts are transformed into reality corresponding exactly to the nature of the thoughts. Once grant the creative power of our thought, and there is an end of struggling for our own way, and an end of gaining it at someone else's expense. For, since by the terms of the hypothesis we can create what we like, the simplest way of getting what we want is not to snatch it from somebody else, but to make it for ourselves. And, since there is no limit to thought, there can be no need for straining, and for everyone to have his own way in this manner would be to banish all strife, want, sickness, and sorrow from the earth. Now, it is precisely on this assumption of the creative power of our thought that the whole Bible rests. If not, what is the meaning of being saved by faith? Faith is essentially thought, and, therefore, every call to have faith in God is a call to trust in the power of our own thought about God. According to your faith be it unto you, says the Old Testament. The entire book is nothing but one continuous statement of the creative power of thought. The law of man's individuality is, therefore, the law of liberty, and equally it is the gospel of peace. For when we truly understand the law of our own individuality, we see that the same law finds its expression in everyone else, and, consequently, we shall reverence the law in others exactly in proportion as we value it in ourselves. To do this is to follow the golden rule of doing to others what we would they should do unto us, and because we know that the law of liberty in ourselves must include the free use of our creative power, there is no longer any inducement to infringe the rights of others. For we can satisfy all our desires by the exercise of our knowledge of the law. As this comes to be understood, cooperation will take the place of competition, with the result of removing all ground for enmity, whether between individuals, classes, or nations. The foregoing quotation is from Bible Mystery and Bible Meaning by the late Judge T. Troward, published by Robert McBride and Company, New York City. Judge Troward was the author of several interesting volumes, among them the Edinburgh Lectures, which is recommended to all students of this course. If you wish to know what happens to a man when he totally disregards the law upon which the Golden Rule philosophy is based, pick out any man in your community whom you know to live for the single dominating purpose of accumulating wealth, and who has no conscientious scruples as to how he accumulates that wealth. Study this man, and you will observe that there is no warmth to his soul, there is no kindness to his words, there is no welcome to his face. He has become a slave to the desire for wealth. He is too busy to enjoy life and too selfish to wish to help others enjoy it. He walks and talks and breathes, but he is nothing but a human automaton. Yet there are many who envy such a man and wish that they might occupy his position, foolishly believing him to be a success. There can never be success without happiness, and no man can be happy without dispensing happiness to others. Moreover, the dispensation must be voluntary and with no other object in view than that of spreading sunshine into the hearts of those whose hearts are heavy laden with burdens. George D.M. Herron had in mind the law upon which the Golden Rule philosophy is based when he said, "We have talked much of the brotherhood to come, but brotherhood has always been the fact of our life. long before it became a modern and inspired sentiment. Only we have been brothers in slavery and torment, brothers in ignorance and its perdition, brothers in disease and war and want, brothers in prostitution and hypocrisy. What happens to one of us sooner or later happens to all. We have always been unescapably involved in common destiny. The world constantly tends to the level of the downmost man in it, and that downmost man is the world's real ruler, hugging it close to his bosom, dragging it down to his death. You do not think so, but it is true, and it ought to be true. For if there were some way by which some of us could get free, apart from others, if there were some way by which some of us could have heaven while others had hell, if there were some way by which part of the world could escape some form of the blight and peril and misery of disinherited labor, then indeed would our world be lost and damned. But since men have never been able to separate themselves from one another's woes and wrongs, since history is fairly stricken with the lesson that we cannot escape brotherhood of some kind, since the whole of life is teaching us that we are hourly choosing between brotherhood and suffering and brotherhood and good, it remains for us to choose the brotherhood of a cooperative world, with all its fruits thereof. The fruits of love and liberty. The World War ushered us into an age of cooperative effort in which the law of live and let live stands out like a shining star to guide us in our relationships with each other. This great universal call for cooperative effort is taking on many forms, not the least important of which are the Rotary Clubs, the Kiwanis Clubs, the Lions Clubs, and the many other luncheon clubs which bring men together in a spirit of friendly intercourse. For these clubs mark the beginning of an age of friendly competition in business. The next step will be a closer alliance of all such clubs in an out-and-out spirit of friendly cooperation. The attempt by Woodrow Wilson and his contemporaries to establish the League of Nations, followed by the efforts of Warren G. Harding to give footing to the same cause under the name of the World Court, marked the first attempt in the history of the world to make the Golden Rule effective as a common meeting ground for the nations of the world. There is no escape from the fact that the world has awakened to the truth in George D. Heron's statement that we are hourly choosing between brotherhood and suffering and brotherhood and good. The World War has taught us, nay, forced upon us, the truth that a part of the world cannot suffer without injury to the whole world. These facts are called to your attention, not in the nature of a preachment on morality, but for the purpose of directing your attention to the underlying law through which these changes are being brought about. For more than 4,000 years the world has been thinking about the Golden Rule philosophy, and that thought is now becoming transformed into realization of the benefits that accrue to those who apply it. Still mindful of the fact that the student of this course is interested in a material success that can be measured by bank balances, it seems appropriate to suggest here that all who may profit by shaping their business philosophy to conform with this sweeping change toward cooperation which is taking place all over the world. If you can grasp the significance of the tremendous change that has come over the world since the close of the World War, and if you can interpret the meaning of all the luncheon clubs and other similar gatherings which bring men and women together in a spirit of friendly cooperation, surely your imagination will suggest to you the fact that this is an opportune time to profit by adopting this spirit of friendly cooperation as the basis of your own business or professional philosophy. Stated conversely, it must be obvious to all who make any pretense of thinking accurately that the time is at hand when failure to adopt the Golden Rule as the foundation of one's business or professional philosophy is the equivalent of economic suicide. Perhaps you have wondered why the subject of honesty has not been mentioned in this course as a prerequisite to success, and if so, the answer will be found in this lesson. The Golden Rule philosophy, when rightly understood and applied, makes dishonesty impossible. It does more than this. It makes impossible all the other destructive qualities such as selfishness, greed, envy, bigotry, hatred, and malice. When you apply the Golden Rule, you become, at one and the same time, both the judge and the judged, the accused and the accuser. This places one in a position in which honesty begins in one's own heart, toward oneself, and extends to all others with equal effect. Honesty based upon the Golden Rule is not the brand of honesty which recognizes nothing but the question of expediency. It is no credit to be honest, when honesty is obviously the most profitable policy, lest one lose a good customer or a valuable client or be sent to jail for trickery. But when honesty means either a temporary or a permanent material loss, then it becomes an honor of the highest degree to all who practice it. Such honesty has its appropriate reward in the accumulated power of character and reputation enjoyed by all who deserve it. Those who understand and apply the Golden Rule philosophy are always scrupulously honest, not alone out of their desire to be just with others, but because, of their desire to be just with themselves. They understand the eternal law upon which the golden rule is based, and they know that through the operation of this law, every thought they release and every act in which they indulge has its counterpart in some fact or circumstance with which they will later be confronted. Golden Rule philosophers are honest because they understand the truth that honesty adds to their own character that vital something which gives it life and power. Those who understand the law through which the Golden Rule operates would poison their own drinking water as quickly as they would indulge in acts of injustice to others. For they know that such injustice starts a chain of causation that will not only bring them physical suffering, but will destroy their characters, stain for ill their reputations, and render impossible the attainment of enduring success. The law through which the Golden Rule philosophy operates is none other than the law through which the principle of autosuggestion operates. This statement gives you a suggestion from which you should be able to make a deduction of a far-reaching nature and of inestimable value. Test your progress in the mastery of this course by analyzing the foregoing statement and determining, before you read on, what suggestion it offers you. Of what possible benefit could it be to you to know that when you do unto others as if you were the others, which is the sum and substance of the Golden Rule, you are putting into motion a chain of causation through the aid of a law which affects the others according to the nature of your act, and at the same time planning in your character, through your subconscious mind, the effects of that act. This question practically suggests its own answer, but as I am determined to cause you to think this vital subject out for yourself, I will put the question in still another form, viz., if all your acts toward others, and even your thoughts of others, are registered in your subconscious mind, through the principle of autosuggestion, thereby building your own character an exact duplicate of your thoughts and acts, can you not see how important it is to guard those acts and thoughts? We are now in the very heart of the real reason for doing unto others as we would have them do unto us. For it is obvious that whatever we do unto others we do unto ourselves. Stated in another way, every act and every thought you release modifies your own character in exact conformity with the nature of the act or thought. And your character is a sort of center of magnetic attraction which attracts to you the people and conditions that harmonize with it. You cannot indulge in an act toward another person without having first created the nature of that act in your own thought. And you cannot release a thought without planting the sum and substance and nature of it in your own subconscious mind. They're to become a part and parcel of your own character. Grasp this simple principle and you will understand why you cannot afford to hate or envy another person. You will also understand why you cannot afford to strike back, in kind, at those who do you an injustice. Likewise, you will understand the injunction, return good for evil. Understand the law upon which the Golden Rule injunction is based, and you will understand, also, the law that eternally binds all mankind in a single bond of fellowship and renders it impossible for you to injure another person, by thought or deed, without injuring yourself, and, likewise, adds to your own character the results of every kind thought and deed in which you indulge. Understand this law, and you will then know, beyond room for the slightest doubt, that you are constantly punishing yourself for every wrong you commit and rewarding yourself for every act of constructive conduct in which you indulge. It seems almost an act of providence that the greatest wrong and the most severe injustice ever done me by one of my fellow men was done just as I began this lesson. Some of the students of this course will know what it is to which I refer. This injustice has worked a temporary hardship on me, but that is of little consequence compared to the advantage it has given me by providing a timely opportunity for me to test the soundness of the entire premise upon which this lesson is founded. The injustice to which I refer left two courses of action open to me. I could have claimed relief by striking back at my antagonist through both civil court action and criminal libel proceedings, or I could have stood upon my right to forgive him. One course of action would have brought me a substantial sum of money and whatever joy and satisfaction there may be in defeating and punishing an enemy. The other course of action would have brought me self-respect, which is enjoyed by those who have successfully met the test and discovered that they have evolved to the point at which they can repeat the Lord's Prayer and mean it. I chose the latter course. I did so, despite the recommendations of close personal friends to strike back, and despite the offer of a prominent lawyer to do my striking for me without cost. But the lawyer offered to do the impossible, for the reason that no man can strike back at another without cost. Not always is the cost of a monetary nature, for there are other things with which one may pay that are dearer than money. It would be as hopeless to try to make one who is not familiar with the law upon which the Golden Rule is based understand why I refuse to strike back at this enemy as it would to try to describe the law of gravitation to an ape. If you understand this law, you understand, also, why I chose to forgive my enemy. In the Lord's Prayer we are admonished to forgive our enemies. But that admonition will fall on deaf ears except where the listener understands the law upon which it is based. That law is none other than the law upon which the Golden Rule is based. It is the law that forms the foundation of this entire lesson, and through which we must inevitably reap that which we sow. There is no escape from the operation of this law. Nor is there any cause to try to avoid its consequences if we refrain from putting into motion thoughts and acts that are destructive. That we may more concretely describe the law upon which this lesson is based, let us embody the law in a code of ethics such as one who wishes to follow literally the injunction of the Golden Rule might appropriately adopt, as follows. My code of ethics. 1. I believe in the Golden Rule as the basis of all human conduct. Therefore, I will never do to another person that which I would not be willing for that person to do to me if our positions were reversed. 2. I will be honest, even to the slightest detail, in all my transactions with others, not alone because of my desire to be fair with them, but because of my desire to impress the idea of honesty on my own subconscious mind, thereby weaving this essential quality into my own character. 3. I will forgive those who are unjust toward me, with no thought as to whether they deserve it or not, because I understand the law through which forgiveness of others strengthens my own character and wipes out the effects of my own transgressions in my subconscious mind. 4. I will be just, generous, and fair with others always, even though I know that these acts will go unnoticed and unrecorded in the ordinary terms of reward, because I understand and intend to apply the law through the aid of which one's own character is but the sum total of one's own acts and deeds. 5. Whatever time I may have to devote to the discovery and exposure of the weaknesses and faults of others, I will devote, more profitably, to the discovery and correction of my own. 6. I will slander no person, no matter how much I may believe another person may deserve it, because I wish to plant no destructive suggestions in my own subconscious mind. 7. I recognize the power of thought as being an inlet leading into my brain from the universal ocean of life. Therefore, I will set no destructive thoughts afloat upon that ocean lest they pollute the minds of others. 8. I will conquer the common human tendency toward hatred and envy and selfishness and jealousy and malice and pessimism and doubt and fear, for I believe these to be the seed from which the world harvests most of its troubles. 9. When my mind is not occupied with thoughts that tend toward the attainment of my definite chief aim in life, I will voluntarily keep it filled with thoughts of courage and self-confidence, and goodwill toward others, and faith, and kindness, and loyalty, and love for truth and justice, for I believe these to be the seed from which the world reaps its harvest of progressive growth. 10. I understand that a mere passive belief in the soundness of the Golden Rule philosophy is of no value whatsoever, either to myself or to others. Therefore, I will actively put into operation this universal rule for good in all my transactions with others. 11. I understand the law through the operation of which my own character is developed from my own acts and thoughts. Therefore, I will guard with care all that goes into its development. 12. Realizing that enduring happiness comes only through helping others find it, that no act of kindness is without its reward, even though it may never be directly repaid, I will do my best to assist others when and where the opportunity appears. You have noticed frequent reference to Emerson throughout this course. Every student of the course should own a copy of Emerson's essays, and the essay on compensation should be read and studied at least every 3 months. Observe, as you read this essay, that it deals with the same law as that upon which the Golden Rule is based.